do it. Otherwise, it
Sure.
makes everything kind of weird. We had to preparing the live stream.
Now it says it's being live streamed.
Yeah, this is awesome. It's working, Lowell.
Okay.
I'm so excited because this doesn't always happen.
That's right.
This is awesome.
Okay,
It's good to
take
be
your
here.
technical hat off. You're live now. So now you have to put your host hat on.
And I need to do, I have to mute. It is muted. Okay, I see you. Well, here we are. And I'm going to say welcome to everyone. Well, welcome to Secrets of Our Divine Life. And tonight I am so thrilled to have Lowell Johnson with us. And as you know, Lowell is a light worker of an amazing magnitude. He is an ascension blogger. Oh, I can't hear you, Lowell. For some
I'm
reason.
not saying anything, honey.
Oh.
I'm good.
Okay. I saw your mouth moving and I'm like, what's going on? I hope we're not having a lag here. Okay. So, Lowell, I'm just going to give a little bio on you because it's nice for people to know. If they don't know you, then it's important for everyone to know who you are. You're an ascension blogger. You are the host of Starbucks Mystery School podcast. You are the author of Starbucks Dimensional Adventures. And most notably, you're a Telos delegate. So you're saying something else, but I don't know what you're saying.
No, I'm just taking a deep breath because when I listen
okay.
to that entire list of things that seem to be a list of accomplishments, it's hard for me to adjust to that because I'm not interested really in drawing that kind of attention myself. But at the same time, I do want people to know that this stuff that's been flowing out of me was divinely inspired. And what's coming out was meant to come out. It took advantage of gifts that I had, some I didn't, and I picked up along the way. But there's a reason that what I'm putting out, and there's some new assets coming out, they're being produced in a way that people like to get information so that they can learn more about the things that you and I talk about, and it won't seem as woo to them. That's what the Berlin Project was. It's people that have resonated with, especially the images that I processed about Inner Earth. That's where this trigger began. So you and I know that the cities in Inner Earth are real. And what I've been guided to do is, Telos was my multidimensional wake-up call. I got to experience something multidimensionality and thought that would be the story I would tell the rest of my life. It wasn't. It was the first thing I was going to be shown. And then every year, something else happened that built on that, that's leading to a reason for me to have my abilities restored. Not just for me, although yes, my ascension is contingent on me following this plan, but it's to show myself as an example for the rest of you, because our physicalities now is different. The one thing different between me and you is first your journey and what lessons you're learning. They are not the same as mine, but yours are just as important and gifted as mine are, and necessary. We weren't supposed to be soldiers all moving in the same direction. No, now that I've seen the tribe that shows up and the diversity of the gifts that they've got and the contributions that they're willing to make, they weren't mine. And they didn't show up, Yarra, to teach me what they knew. Some of that is true. There are some things that we are going to teach each other, but for the most part, Dave Wallace was never going to teach me the things Dave Wallace knows. And that's great because I got Dave. I don't need anything else. He's a resource that's amazing. And if you haven't had an opportunity to listen to him mindfully about a month ago, we had talked about this since he and I had met in Shasta last year. There was so much knowledge that it took Dave a while to just process about it's not an abduction. I don't want to call it that. I don't want to characterize it as that. Dave was a willing participant and had built a level of communication with lights in the sky in 2017, actually before that. In 2017, he was actually taken and given a huge upgrade in his capacity to comprehend the things that he brought back. Now, it took a good 6 months, and I have a wonderful frame of reference for this. Once something that extraordinary happens, it takes a while for you to come to terms with it and understand what that was. There's a lot of 3D thinking that you can turn that into a circus, and you can tell that story for the rest of your days, but that wasn't the purpose why we were given this information. No, there's more information that's required, was the word that was going to come out. I guess we'll use that word. That humanity needs to know now. Over the last week, if you've watched the solar influences and the effect it's had on our physicality, I need to give you no more evidence than that this shift is coming, and it's coming rapidly.
Yes.
All what we're doing is in preparation for that.
Yeah, and I did listen to a little bit of Dave Wallace, and I have not listened to all his story yet, but I know that he is brilliant in his own right. And I mean, why wouldn't he connect with you? I mean, you've both, been awakened and upgraded in amazing ways. So the two of you connecting makes total sense to me. And everyone that is on your mystical school podcast is just incredible with the gifts that they're bringing through.
They showed up to offer things that they were supposed to offer going on. And I bless their hearts when they begin to talk about their own experiences. It gives credence to everybody else that's out there that feels like they never could say anything about it. Those days are long gone. I get great pleasure. There was one woman, it's been a year or so since this happened, but I always remember she had come on one of the podcasts and had shared toward the end. She wasn't really participating, and that's what those podcasts were meant to be. I was never meant to be a host and a talking head and navigating, a series of questions. This is meant to be an exchange. Here's somebody, I've been there. I'm going to bring others that ever experienced this. Ask your questions when you can, and we'll record it for posterity. She waited till the very end and had said that something had happened in the early 70s. When she was a kid, she had these experiences with, elementals and just things beyond herself. And it was benevolent and it was warm. And then when she was ridiculed, she shut that down in the early 70s and never went back to revisit it. Not until she heard some of the tribe. Now, she wasn't led to us. That wasn't a coincidence. She was led there to let her know that there were others, that this is okay. In fact, we welcome you. We want you to begin to speak star language if that's natural to you. I can't tell you the number of people that I've heard in these sessions that just begin to talk that. And they admitted, well, I did that when I was a kid. People made fun of me, so I never did it again. Here you are. I'm telling you, you're connected to something that you already know. And that kind of communication has value, not just for you, but for the rest of us. You're probably going to help be a communicator of whatever that language happens to be. You can speak it, so clearly you can translate it. There's still a lot of us that don't. And so you can see that these people who are awakening up to that, all of a sudden they're taking command of a gift that they didn't really realize that they'd had. There's a lot of that going on.
Yes, absolutely. And I've seen many people breaking out in light language right now. And it's just beautiful to see. It just shows the level of frequency and vibration we're all moving into. And it's just wonderful. So, this is about secrets of our divine life. So I was listening to your amazing, what do you call it? I guess you created a whole podcast or some show on about Lemuria through a being that was in humanity. As a human, she came here and started to share her experience of what life was like in Lemuria. And I know that we're just going to talk briefly because I know that you are bringing that out in a
Yes.
big way on Prime, which is a really great way to bring things to people, and they can buy it and keep it, or they can listen to it. And it's really amazing, I have to say.
You know, who
Yes.
knew? I didn't get involved in any of this to turn it into an enterprise. And
Mhm.
yet, books have manifested.
Sure.
Affirmation cards have manifested. And now some video assets have manifested. The one that you're referring to is important for everyone who resonates with Lemuria or Telos to begin with.
Absolutely.
I had heard about Sharula Dux, who was a princess of Telos, back in October, shortly after my incident, which, by the way, tomorrow will be 4 years ago. It was the day that Telos opened up. Yes.
So, yeah, okay, yeah.
So it was Rob Potter who asked me if I knew about her. I did some research, and here is where I found a website that had posted a 2-hour presentation that she had done in 1993. They posted 15 years ago, but they broke it up into 12 10-minute sections, so they made it palatable. And to be honest, when I listened to it, I wasn't fully engaged into the content. I'm still pretty new on my journey. I really didn't understand what this was, but allegedly, this was one of them who lived among us on the surface. Well, of course, now anything that I can do due diligence wise to find out any more than I can about the Lemurians and what had happened in Telos. And that's just expanded to inner earth because we're not just focused on that. I want to know. So by hook and crook, Diane Robbins, who has authored 5 books on these topics, and she's well known, she had a relationship with Sharula. And in fact, it was her that taped this event. And so not long ago, when Diane was talking about other things, I had expressed an interest in stitching all that back up together and putting it out there for everybody. It's 1 hour and 58-minute form, and she was thrilled. So when it was all finished, she was the first one that I showed it to. And I had enhanced Sharula's narration in her own words. Here is the nature of Telos and Lemurians, and things about Atlantis that we're not aware, just ignorant of. But I added those inner earth images that I had to it. So it's in the process of being put on the Prime platform so that anybody that needs to listen to it or wants to can. In my opinion, this is a piece of history. And I actually sent an email out to both the History Channel and Gaia and asked them to go look at it on YouTube and said, this is history. It either needs to be on yours or it needs to be on yours. It needs to be on one or both of them. And, I heard back from one of them, but look, I know what my guides have given me and the reasons. And there was a really good reason why I walked this step, all of the preparation up to this, to even think about putting on a streaming platform, and then finding that there weren't any restrictions for me to go ahead and do that on Prime. It was just a process. So we're this far away from the end of the process, but a really important piece in my mind of history that was documented on tape in 1993 is now going to be available for everyone to listen to.
Yes. And, for me, when I saw it, I was so thrilled to learn the history because I have a lot of Atlantean background that I've learned about, but in the last, I'd say, 6 to 7 years, my Lemurian background has come out. And basically, Lemurian is where I came from. And so I didn't own that for a long time because I didn't realize I was Lemurian. I just thought I was Atlantean. And so that's where my base was. But learning about myself, and this is why it was so wonderful to listen to that Sharula, listening to her
Sharula.
Sharula, sorry, Sharula.
No, it's okay.
Rolling that one around. And it just opened the doors to so much information. And there's a gentleman that I interviewed years ago, Tom T. Moore. He wrote a book about Lemuria and Atlanteans, and he wrote it from the Atlantis perspective, moving the Atlanteans moving into going to Egypt when things started getting really bad. But this is really the actual destruction of how the earth has shifted and how the Lemurians moved into inner earth. And it's just incredible what she was sharing, and every little nuance of life she has shared, which I don't know how much you want me to share on this, but I just thought it was amazing.
Be my guest. I believe, honey, that everybody needs to see this.
I do. I believe.
I know it to be a piece
yeah.
of history, and people don't recognize it as such yet.
Yes. And so, we had a little trouble connecting today. So I had written a whole write-up, and I called it A Lemurian Perspective. And the first thing I said was, when I finally knew that I was going to Mount Shasta, and this was in 2017, I sat down and I cried. See, it's coming again, from a deep, deep longing and loneliness, which I couldn't quite understand. And that whole thing has been with me my whole life. And I had always connected to my Atlantean roots, but never to Lemuria. But recently, about a year ago, I had a QHHT session where the first thing that opened up for me was Lemurian, my first Lemurian life. My first thing that I came in was a Lemurian, and I was so surprised. And so this information is just so powerful, because it talks about how they went into the inner earth. They prepared it. They moved people in. They couldn't get everyone in. I know that they had a number they had, hoped for. And we're talking about 12,000 years ago. And this all happened, this destruction of the earth. And the fact that it was such an intense destruction. I'm not sure if I'm going to say this right, but I think all the Atlantean problems and the Lemurian problems, they were having the war, and then the earth sort of was reacting to it. And instead a volcano exploded to the level of 15, which I've never heard of such a thing. And the noise was so loud. This blew my mind when she was sharing that it killed people instantly. Just the noise of the explosion of the volcano shocked people, and they died from the shock of the noise. And that to me was like, oh my goodness. And so many people just perished instantly. But then you had a gentleman on, which I listened to another one of your shares on the podcast, who has traced his own Lemurian roots. And he was one of the people collecting the people to go on the ship. I think his name was Chris. And
yes,
he connected, and he also has connected with Shirula, which I thought was unbelievable. And I love how he said, if you want to connect with the beings in the inner earth, call them and ask them to connect with you. So anyone listening, it's not just for anyone, special people. You can connect if you're called to connect with Lemuria or the inner earth.
This is all about educating people about their personal vibration levels and getting it ready for the next level of Earth's consciousness. That is what's going to change.
Yes.
And in order for us to enjoy new Earth, there are lots of seeds that have been planted in your corporeal body right now to prepare you for what's going to be next. But this is coming one way or the other. And so when I didn't want to talk about it for the longest time, every time I said I didn't want to do something, the universe just said, yeah, well, you're going to do it anyway. But I have 4 instances in mind of things that I said I wasn't going to do, and here I am. But I have a whole different attitude, especially after the last couple of weeks with exchanges that Dave and I have had. And Dave Wallace and I, we've come to the conclusion on, we're both ambassadors.
Yes.
And here we have a bridge. And the cool part is that I'm beginning to have experiences with Dave's resources, and Kim Jim has certainly benefited me. My role has been, an awareness of, it started out with Telos and Lemurians and, ring the bell, here they come. I was reminded there are a lot of other places to talk about that are Lemurian outposts and Atlantean, compounds, and those things are still here. I'm here to help bring some attention to that. So after, Sharula came, that's when I went back and my guide said, yeah, we know about 9 of these places. Let's bring those things to life. So those were the last 9 3-minute each things that I put out there that just resonated like hell with me. When I heard this name and I understood what was supposed to be there, I found some music that went with it, and holy cow, here's 9 more assets that are, somebody saw this week and looked at it like a producer and went, oh my God, there are 9 stories in there.
Sure. Oh,
yep,
yeah.
Yep.
And I think what
are.
you're referring to, I just don't want to confuse people when they're listening. You're talking about all the different places on the earth where all these cities from, that the people are in the inner earth, that all the different cities are in underneath different areas of our planet. Is that what you're
now?
Yeah.
Yes, people are going to think that Hollow Earth is this 3D thing and there are these underground caves that people live in.
Right.
I have to get your mind wrapped around a multidimensionality environment where the world is supported in that. And there is physicality to inner Earth, but not in a way that we can put into terms we understand from 3D. Here is where the box is kind of, firm.
Yeah, if you look behind me, everyone who's watching, this is a digital representation of the temple in Telos, which is the city under Mount Shasta. And this is what Lowell created through his own knowledge of being in Telos. And maybe you can give us a little quick recap of how you got there, because I think on my summit, we never actually did talk about it, but all you have to do is a little bit about it, just so people understand what your trip actually was. And because this is your 4th anniversary of that, which is pretty amazing.
Tomorrow, that's right. Tomorrow's the day.
Yeah. So
the 26th of July.
Well, congratulations. And, this was what opened the doors to your entire divine life that you're living right now, isn't it?
I'd been on a spiritual search, and what led up to this day was actually, by this time 4 years ago, I had come to Mount Shasta, led there. It wasn't my original intent, led there. And so I was 4 weeks into a stay. I was going to come for a week, maybe stay for 2.
Yes.
And I was stuck, not stuck in a bad way. There was energy there that I didn't realize until after the 2nd week, when an older couple had articulated about how the energy was so palpable and how their energy was just at a different level. That's when I recognized it in myself and went, holy shit, there's something to this.
Yes.
I can't get back there fast enough. I was there last week for a week, and then I had to rush back to Santa Rosa for a different purpose. I'll be returning in another few days. But when you get wrapped up in the city like this, I don't want to say that I get a level of anxiety. But when you're caught up in all this white noise around here, it's like you need you just want to take a deep breath. Mm-hmm. That's what you get. It took me, by the 3rd day in Shasta, just on the side of the road in the woods, I'd found my peace again. And that's what I needed to restore the connection between me and what's higher than me. I can't get it when I'm around here.
Yes.
How you get quiet enough to reach into that place where you can is impossible in the city for me. I've been able to meditate in different ways, but the type of connection I'm talking about, making to things beyond ourselves, that has to be done in a different kind of serenity and peace and quiet, and that's where you can find it. So I
want to go in a little bit of a direction here, which
I'm coming back to Telos.
Okay, go ahead.
You right now.
Go ahead.
I had heard about Saint Germain, and about Guy Ballard running into Saint Germain in the woods in Shasta in the 30s. And so in my mind, those beings were there. And when I went off trail, which I like to do, I certainly thought, well, here's a ripe environment for you to reach out to me. It's just you and me, ascended master. If you have messages for me, and God knows if I can reach out to spirit, I'm here to explore that. Here I am. I didn't know that the Sunday that I was going to go research what I thought could have looked like cave openings, the mountain was actually going to open up and invite me in. That's when
Yes. So can you say that a little slower? That you said that so quickly.
Yes.
Say
well,
it slowly.
I'll take it to this Sunday, the day that I was there. I had scoped this out a few days earlier, and I had seen Shastina, which from my perspective would have been to the left of Shasta, from a parking lot labeled Old Ski Bowl Trail. It's really as high as you can drive. It's almost 9,000 feet there, and I love this place. I love it during the day to hike. I love it at night for stargazing. The energy there is where I really plug in. Anyway, I had made my way off into this area that I had seen a couple days before around noon when the sun, cast its shadows on it. It almost looked like there were cave openings over there. So that's what I was going to spend one day and go explore that. Didn't look like it was far to get there. It wasn't on the trail, so I was going to hike, but that wasn't my concern. So when I got up into these areas, I had great luck finding areas with higher charged energy. That's what I found immediately. I found areas where you could step into this area and I don't know what the energy is, but whatever this is, all I can call it is elevated. And once you stayed there, man, things look greener, sounds were deeper. And there was almost like something took a hold of your senses and made them more acute. This day, I had found one of those areas as I was moving up to an area that I thought might be one of these cave openings. And when I saw the first one, I got settled there, and then immediately to my left and a little bit higher, I saw one that was a little bit bigger and looked like it had the same characteristics. So I went over there, and when I got there, there was one more against the side of the mountain. There were these 3 boulders that almost came out and looked like it made a little balcony, if you want to see it that way. And so that was the last thing I'd seen. And so when I went up to take a look at it, the boulder on this side was a little higher than my inseam and narrow. So I could get over it. And then there were these other 2 boulders that kind of made this way into a place where, you could sit against here. I did. From where I was, off in the distance, I could see the parking lot and where I came from. There was certainly nobody who knew where I was. Unlikely that anyone would see me from where I was. But the thing that I thought I was supposed to do first, I'm a light worker. I understand. I go to Shasta and my energy, there is an exchange. I don't get something from the mountain. It's always an exchange. So my job is to plant light. And everywhere I go on the mountain, that's what I do. I have a process by which I do that. I take 4 infinity breaths, and I have drawn light into that spot. And when I step back, I've left that aura behind. So I completed that task, and then I sat down. Even if I was standing up and somebody came by, maybe they would have seen me. There's no way no one would ever know where I was. I was listening to music. My phone was in my back pocket. I had some water and some grapes. And when I'd finished with the food and beverage and put that back into my bag, and then my phone just stopped working. So when now my back, I'm rested up, my feet, I'm not laying on the floor, but I'm sitting on the floor, on the ground. My legs are stretched out and I'm leaned up against, this brush between me and the mountain. I leaned forward to pull my phone out of my back pocket where I always keep it. When I looked at it, there's no power. When I went to turn the power back on, I felt the breeze from behind me. And that's when I turned around, and whatever I was leaning against has now been replaced by a hole that was probably 9 feet at the apex. So I stood up and turned around, and you could see this looked like it went, there was, didn't know what it was. Later, it'll make sense to me that this is a lava tube, but it kind of goes up. There's a grade that goes up and then it goes down.
Okay.
And as my eyes could adjust, it looks like there's somebody down.
Mhm.
And when I get that awareness, somebody had said the words, "Do you wish to see Telos?" My heart raced a little, but I like adventures and I don't have any fear of anything anymore. Man, I came looking for a connection to some benevolent beings, and I think I'm going to get it. So as I made my way down and the light got better, I had thought that this was somebody who was about my size from where I was. I really didn't have a perspective, and the light wasn't that great. And I'm 6 feet tall. When I got closer, this being was not 6 feet tall. He was at least 2 heads taller than I was. So I put him at like 8 feet. So as I got closer, he said, "You can call me Alex." I said, "Well, that'll be easy to remember. That's my son's name." He says, "Yeah, we know about your son. Follow me." And so now we follow this incline downward toward a source of light down there. And along the way, he's explaining the nature of Telos, the levels it's got, a little bit about the council and how it's configured, the king and queen, Ra and Rana, and the roles that they all play. I'm taking it in as quickly as I can. I'm really not saying anything because I just want to listen and pay attention. But as we get closer to the bottom of all of this, I turned around to take a look at where I'd come from, and there's no light from where I come from. It would take me a couple of years to figure out that I had passed through some type of a portal. And that now makes sense with why I'm in this environment, and that was different. Anyway, as we get to the base of this area opens up into, I call it a staging area because I don't know what else to call it. On the other side, which is, maybe, I would say it's about the length of a hockey rink. That would be right. So about 200 feet on the other side, there are 5 more of these tubes. Just to the left of me, though, from where we're standing, there's a platform. It's about 6 by 6. I wish I could tell you what the material was, but I can't tell you. I want to say it's crystal because I think everything is made out of that, but I can't even say that. And upon it, it looked like there were 2 like bucket seats. Over there was another one. Over there was another one. And by the time I'm taking all this in, well, Alex had made his way over to the opposite side and sat down and indicated for me to sit next to him. And as soon as my butt hit that seat, this thing levitated and off we went into that center one over there. Now
yeah, I don't want to interrupt you, but I just want to, like, when you did this comprehensive talk from Sharula, she talks about 2 kinds of travel in the Telos area. They have the sled. So it sounds like you were on a sled, right?
When I heard that, that's what clicked with me too. I'm sure that there are different varieties of that, because the sleds that she described, and even the ones that I had in my mind, it was all a little bit different than the craft I thought I was riding on that day. Because there wasn't much around it. You just got on this thing and away it went. But it was like a 2-passenger. The sleds that she was referring to make total sense to me.
Yeah, and she also,
and they hover over the land like those do. But mine wasn't limited to, say, I think of the propulsion of those types of things where there's an energy field around them. So that's why you never run into the walls. Well, this is kind of like a bumper all the way around you, so that you go at high speeds through these tubes, and that's why you can't.
So I don't want to interrupt you, but I do a little bit. So I wanted to say, when you did this 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 event you've put together from Shirula, have you seen so much validation of everything that you saw in Telos? Is she
Absolutely.
validating everything that you saw?
Yes. The only things that she got to go on about that I didn't have the opportunity to see was the animal and plant life on the lower levels.
Right.
I'd give anything to go back and experience that, and one day I will.
Yes.
But the rest of it, the hydroponic gardens she was talking about, the temple she was talking about, the council chamber she was talking about, those were all places I got to experience.
Which is so
yes.
amazing. It's so amazing because, you know, and I want to just do a little comparison for what you're telling us now and what you found out through the Shirula information, and how wonderful it will be when people watch both. They listen to you and your experience, and then they listen to her. And all the digital art that you put together, Lowell, is amazing. I mean, you are incredibly gifted with this digital art. And as I said, the piece behind me is the temple. And that's what, and is that exactly how you saw Telos at the time?
As close as I could. Let me stop here for just a second,
Yeah,
because really after this Telos experience, and when it had sunk in, what occurred to me was that I wished I could just take this out of my head like a VR unit, and you could put it on to see what I saw. And I thought sometime the method for me to be able to do that, to illustrate it better for others to see what I saw, that it would present itself. I didn't know how it was going to come until a podcast I'd done, I think, in early December. And one of the host sidekicks was a graphic artist. His name is Luis, and I love Luis. I have a lot of things to thank him for. He was going to teach me the tool that didn't necessitate me to be an artist, that was going to help me keyword drive AI illustrations that were going to be able to take my visions and put them down. When I first saw the things he had created, he had heard about my Telos experiences and had come up with not just a couple of images that he had created, dozens. And when I saw them, there was one in particular that triggered me, as though it looked like here is an entry from the surface with a light path that goes into the halls of Amenti.
Yes,
I
I've
said,
seen
would
that.
you mind if I have that?
I've seen that. It's incredible. Yes.
Exactly.
I actually may have one here to show people. I'm going to have to look through my things. Here, I'm just going to show a quick picture of Cerulla Ducks. I don't know if this is going to show up now. Can you see it?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, that's great.
Shirula. She is a
That's
princess.
the last known image of her from the 90s.
And this is
she kind of fell off the radar in like 2005 to 7. That's the last time anyone's heard from her again.
Okay.
She showed up here in the late 80s, and she was here to serve. She was here to bring an awareness to tell us.
Form, but here is the entryway. I think, is this what you're talking about? The entry?
Yeah, that's what the dome looks like from the inside.
Right up at the top here. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't see the top of the dome, and it's lit like daylight. Explain that.
That's under Mount Shasta, right?
Yes.
It's incredible.
Actually, the city of Telos is located there, but Telos as a landmass is most of Western United States and into the Southwest, that whole area. And that was just what remains of Telos before Lemuria broke off at the coast. It's a lot bigger than that. A lot bigger than that.
Yeah. And some of your artwork is just so incredible. I know that you are really showing so many pieces that you, I'm going to just show a couple more because I'm not going to show your whole thing because it's a 2-hour long event to watch, and it's absolutely.
Well, we want others, they can go and see it there themselves, and there's a lot of other images that didn't make that.
This is the hydroponic gardens, right?
Yes.
And this is so gorgeous. I mean, I should hold it up a little more because.
Now I lost it.
Oh, we did. Okay.
There you go.
All right, it's better in front of me. There. I mean, I know this isn't the best professional way, but that's the only way I can show it right now. So it's so incredible how you can remember everything that you saw, and you've only been there that one time, right?
Physically, so far. That's right.
That's right.
Yes.
So you did see the levels, like the five, you saw some of the 3 of the 5 levels of.
I saw 3 of the 5 levels. Just time didn't permit that day, but I'll be going back. We
That's-
all knew that. But as much as I have Telos in the forefront of my mind, because I definitely want to go back and revisit it again, that's when these other cities have been popping into my field.
Right.
And there's a level of awareness I'm supposed to bring forward for them as well.
Yes, it's amazing what you brought through. I was looking through some of those and it was just gorgeous and incredible. What
There are
is
more history lessons.
Yes, and it's the history we've been missing. And here is the picture you made of Agartha, which is the whole federation underneath in the inner earth, correct?
That came, that was an illustration in a Swedish woman's book who wrote something about Hollow Earth as well.
Okay.
What I will say is that from a 3D perspective, that's as close a representation as we're going to get, but it makes enough references to areas that are connected to inner earth. That's why it was important. Don't misunderstand me. Just think that that's what it looks like. I can't, and I don't have the words or the concepts to be able to explain a 4th dimensional reality in that way yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there.
So what I wanted to show is outside, the circle on the outside, the blue is the crust of the earth where we live, correct?
Yeah, well, you have to understand the way that our crust works too. And a great source for that, there's a guy named Ben Davidson who has a channel called Suspicious Observers. And this guy is a solar weather expert. He's been schooled in it. He understands the nature of those things. And Ben has a really wonderful, one of the videos he's put on, I think it's about 10 minutes long, is an example of what the earth really looks like and what our mantle really looks like on the inside. And if you see that, you know, it isn't connected to too much.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, this is what I love about that you're sharing right now about Telos. And then when people go and watch the Sharula Ducks, kind of a documentary that you put together for the
That's how I see it, really. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, it's really, it's all facets of life. I mean, she shares about how they raise their children, how they have relationships. And I know those are things you weren't able to, be part of yet, because you were seeing the physical aspects of Telos at the time, right? Anything else? Tell us some more, a little more. What are the highlights of Telos that you want to tell us about? Just that really has impacted you.
Well, we left off, we had just entered the tube. And I wanted to talk about that because while we went through this tube, it wasn't what was happening there until we got on the other end. And whatever light source, wherever we were going, was pretty well lit, just like we'd come down the first time. As we got closer to the other end and light started to penetrate that tube, the crystals in the walls refracted the light in a way like this was a living kaleidoscope as I was coming through the end of this, and I didn't want that part to end. It was so gorgeous. And then when we finally came through the opening, we're in the middle of it's downtown. Telos is what came to mind. We're in the main level of Telos. And he takes our craft up so that we have a perspective of, you've seen those cityscapes. This is what I see. So that illustration behind you was indicative of what I saw. That pyramid, which allegedly holds 10,000 people at a time, is a white pyramid with a living stone cap on the top. Now, I would find out later, because the day I was there was Sunday. There is a pattern to the color that it appears, and it aligns with what happens in the city that day. The Lemurians see it as, this is the light that the universe is emitting on this day. And so when we get into that vibration, we can take advantages of all all the bits and pieces of that particular light on this day, and tomorrow when it recycles, it may pick up a different light. Well, the day I was there was white. It was on a Sunday, and that's indicative typically of a Sunday. But if I'd have been there on a Wednesday, it probably would have been emerald. Had I been there on Saturday, it would have been violet. I knew none of that until after the trip. And that's really when I met Diane Robbins. And she had shared that little tidbit of information, which, by the way, she realized had never made any of the 5 of her books before.
Oh, how interesting. Yeah, that was fascinating. I remember hearing Sharula talk about that, how each color, they lived by the color that was brought through. It sort of gave them guidance of how to live that day. It's sort of how I'm interpreting it. But
they emanate almost like an emotional vibration. Pink
right.
has its vibration. And when you, I think of what we were told about when we wanted to connect and go with the flow. I see myself as I jumped in a river and I just went with the flow. And when I did, I experienced the river the way it's supposed to, instead of trying to kick my way upstream and fighting it all the way. When you get in that frequency of those colors and you get in that flow, you get to take advantage of whatever level of elemental control I have from that particular frequency source. And when you leverage it in that way, man, you've just gone way beyond your own capacities. It's wonderful.
Yes,
makes sense.
Yes, and here's a little picture, and I know I don't want to steal your thunder, but this picture is so beautiful of the light colors at the bottom.
Down a little bit.
Colors. Is it lower?
I can't see it.
Oh,
yeah, I can't see it.
Oh, really?
There you go. Well, now I can't. I did a second ago.
All right, how's that?
Nope. Nope.
Okay.
Not yet.
And I can't.
Not yet. Well, I know which one you're trying to show, but for the viewers, they won't.
I'm sorry, viewers. I've tried. I did well on the other one. Anyway, the colors are gorgeous, and they talk about the computers. Oh, I see how I was holding it. I get an after effect on YouTube.
There you go. Yeah.
Oh, all right. You got it?
Yes.
Oh boy. I can't tell right now because I see this later. It's interesting how this is working.
Yes.
So I love how they talk about the computers being living beings, living entities that are connected to
their computers
lifestyles.
Are run by amino acids. This is living consciousness, and you plug into that in the same way. We have this fixation on AI right now, and the argument is that it's going to control our lives.
Right.
And there's a certain degree in Lemuria and in Telos where not just there, all of Inner Earth uses the same technology from this source because it's just natural. It comes from source. It's a flow that you connect with, and it's not meant. It's not what it does for us. It's what we learn to do for ourselves from connecting to that. That's what it's for.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing how the way they bring through their understanding and leading their lives is so they talk about the computer. Are they connected to the Christ energy? Is that what that was? I think that was
Christ consciousness. Yes.
Christ consciousness. And so they think of it's the God consciousness that they're connecting to, and it cannot be corrupted. So they never worry about it, which I thought was amazing and quite it's so reassuring that we don't, to hear that when they live in that kind of an environment that they've created themselves. I mean, with all the frequency that they brought through and the vibration that they live in. And
I mean, we had that vibration here on the surface.
We did.
And they just took it with them to protect it, to actually guard themselves from the negativity on the planet until that experiment was all over. And then they had been saying for a long time they're anxious to rejoin and reconnect with the surface. But in the state that it's in right now, you can understand, of course, why they weren't going to let that interrupt what they've got going on. I take a lot of comfort in that because I know where we're going. I've seen their civilization and I understand how heart-based it is. We
Yes.
are this far from never having to deal with the density of this third dimensional crap anymore. We will still be in a planet that is still physical. In our fourth and fifth dimensional beings, we are physical bodies, but we no longer look at the duality the same way that we did. There's no longer a right and a wrong and a black and a white and a hot and a cold camp. We don't think that way anymore. The world spins that way, but we all know we're connected to everybody else. Unity and love and compassion is kind of the framework for all of our decision making and the way that we live our lives. We're here to assist everybody else. We don't look at what I don't have and what they do have. We don't live in those terms anymore.
Right.
We're like a field goal away from all of this. And that's why I'm beginning to speak about things that for 40 years as a hospitality exec, we did not talk about this. No. But the world wasn't this close to its new dress it's going to put on, if you want to look at it that way.
Beautiful.
She's moving into a whole nother section. And I know more about myself now. I know that's why I showed up in this incarnation, to help through this process. And so did a lot of the rest of you once you get a hold of your awareness and remember why you came into this incarnation. But of course, that goes to say you believe in incarnation, so I can point to your past lives, but it's all there, guys. Let me tell you, it's all there.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point because even some of my friends do not believe in reincarnation. And I find that so hard to believe anymore, that someone cannot believe it, that when they say I don't really believe in it, I'm sort of struck and I have to stop because it's just so out of my realm of thinking. It's just very hard to believe that these people can't even connect to the fact that we've lived multiple lives, but they believe this is it. This is the one life they have, and that's all there is. And we know that isn't true. We're multidimensional beings, and we're here, and we've lived many, many times to constantly raise consciousness in all planets and all galaxies and all universes. We don't just live here.
When the we that we refer to, it's important to remind people that your soul is just riding around in this biosuit for this particular incarnation you picked. It wasn't my first rodeo I was in, and it's not going to be the last. But these bodies, we came to Earth to help her through an experimentation. That's what this planet was, to see how humanity would do on their own. Well, admittedly, we had been tinkered with along the way. And that needed to be corrected before humanity was ever going to be in a position to really prove what they could do. Really, there's not a lot of beings in the galaxy that have sovereignty and free will to make choices of their own, given our own creativity. That's why there's so much interest in humanity, to really see what we can do. So imagine now that in these physical forms and the humans that we like to think we like to make things better. Imagine the technologies we're going to get back that the Lemurians have just been holding, in trust until we were ready to wield it again. Wait till those two things mesh. Even they realize that what makes us so different from them is our emotion. They're kind of past that part. They don't get excited. They don't get angry. They understand bliss, but what drives our creativity, unquestionably, is our emotion. And when we're on, man, we make things better. So they're crazy to see what we do with it when all this reunification takes place again.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah, it's so beautifully said. And just to go back to the Sharula documentary that you made, the way they raise their children is phenomenal. And I don't want to say too much about it, but I know even the teenagers, the teenage section was so incredibly new information of how they allow these children to develop. And it's so many things that they're bringing through that is important for us to hear and to, take and to make take it and, develop it in our own world if we can eventually, maybe not yet, but it certainly is planting the seeds. And, we do have people like Sherry Divban who's doing all that, and other people that are doing the schools that are changing things for children. But this is a whole lifestyle that they've created of how to allow these children to be part of their world immediately. And
They've been doing that for tens of thousands of years. They're really not,
exactly.
they're pretty good at it. But
Exactly.
we, along the way, we've heard references in child rearing to takes a community. We've heard that it takes a
Oh,
village.
it takes a village. Yeah, that
They really understand what that means. And when
it
you
does.
listen to Shirula describe the way that they make provisions for children, you got to back up the truck a little bit, first of all, to understand relationships between Lemurians, first of all. And there's basically two levels. There are bonded marriages, which is, how would I put this in 3D terms? It's like a really great friendship, and you two, you have something you want to explore that. It doesn't limit your ability to have others. And we would look at that from a three-dimensional perspective and go, yeah, you can't do that shit. Well, they have a much wider idea of having experiences with others. Now, when it comes to children and raising that, that's a whole different thing. That's a sacred marriage. And that requires some training you're going to go through with the priests and the priestesses at the temple so that you understand how to raise a child. And even after that, you're not alone in the process. There are godparents, pairs of godparents that are paired with you to help you raise the kid, because they also have strength. There are going to be those times that I know that you were kind of making mention to, those times when teenagers need to be teenagers and there are lessons to learn. There are certainly instances where parents go, I don't want to deal with this anymore. Some of those other godparents are well equipped to deal with them during those times. And that's when that interaction is so important, so that these sovereign beings with free will still get to do that. But if, they're just times when they have hormonal changes they're going through them too. They're human beings too. There is this process that we're going on to explore this physical part of ourselves. And this is just another way to express it. It no longer we look at it in 3D terms where that's someone who doesn't behave. No, it's someone who is working through some lessons that they've got. And we should just, our job is to allow it, send them love and light on their way, because in the long run, their Akash benefits the entire collective.
Yes, they allow a lot of freedom for the children in a way that they're still in a safe environment and they have guidance, but they give them a whole different kind of freedom than we've ever thought of giving our children here. And it's really evolutionary, totally. Obviously they are evolved people, but it's so well put together, but it's very natural. It seems very natural in so many ways.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's just such a natural way to raise your children. And we've fallen away from that in so many ways, although I have a lot of friends that live close to their family and their children, and they all still connect. And it's beautiful to see. And so we're coming back. Some people have still held on to some of that. Some of us have not. And so it's coming back to that, but in a whole new way, when like the godparents you talked about. It's an incredible idea. And it's not just one pair of godparents, it's many pairs of godparents.
It's 12 pairs, actually.
Yeah, I didn't want to say it, but as long as you want.
It's fine, whatever's there is all meant for people to understand. These teenagers get to spend time with each one of the families. And as I was growing up, I grew up in St. Paul, Minnesota, and I had that relationship with a lot of my friends. I had other sets of parents in other households, and when I spent a night or a weekend there, it was just like home. So it's a really familiar concept to me, and it certainly makes sense.
That makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah, I guess I could say, well, I had family that lived near me. My cousins were right next door, and my grandmother was down next door to her, so we were all connected. And so we had kind of a village around us.
You
but
learn lots of perspectives.
yes, yes, but it's changed since my children have grown. It's changed because we've moved.
Yes.
And I mean, my own personal and yours, we were still of that kind of community, but I think the next generations, the younger ones now in the, I don't know, the 80s, 90s, they're different. They're just different. They weren't brought up the same. So it's going to be something to look at that with Sharula and her the documentary that you put together, to learn a whole new appreciation of how we can get back to those ways that but in a whole new way, not the way
Yeah.
we're used to. It's just a whole new way of looking at it. And
Sherry, you mentioned
support.
Sherry Dibben. Sherry's on the right track. She
Sherry
sees it for what it is
Yes.
when she understands. Well, there's another aspect I want to point out first, that the children that are coming into their incarnations now, and even the generation before that, they weren't as handcuffed, it seems, from a DNA perspective, that they
Right.
have a lot more awareness of the things around them and the way the world spins and the galaxy, and they just have a natural curiosity and awareness of all of that. So here is where the idea of allowing these kids to just figure out who they are and what they're good at, let them experiment until they nail onto something. And here now you understand the beauty of when you find something you really love, then it's not a job anymore. It's what I do. And I'm really good at it. And no one does it as well as I do. When you find those people for the tribe, they just plug in where they're supposed to be. Are they supposed to be like the rest of us? Nope. Are they supposed to teach the rest of them what they know? To a degree, but nope, no. We have them. Just like that illustration I gave you before about Dave, or even in your case, Yarra, you have a gift that none of the rest of us have. But one day you're going to pull it up and you'll do it because it's easy for you. The rest of us, marvel because we don't. But that's the tribe coming together. And when you start to look at all of us that are being drawn to these types of broadcasts, they're more tribe showing up to hear the next thing. And, where do I fit into all this? And it's not a competition. They're just showing up because something is moving all of us from a place we didn't really understand.
Yes, and it's so important to share these ideas because we're planting seeds everywhere when we do this. And you're having experiences that people need to hear that are possible. And I've had some, and we've all had experiences that are important to share because we've been told that we're limited, and we're not limited beings at all. So what would you like to share that you feel is something special that you can really relate to your Telos initiation, I would almost call it?
There's a tribe member, and I want to pay homage to Paula. Her name's Paula Davis. Paula's from Texas, and I tell you how our paths crossed last year, and she'd had a history of she worked in political circles. And I want to say she was like a lobbyist, and that was she worked in that influence. But she's like me. She's very Capricorn minded and very evidentiary in her thinking. She needs to find proof. And when a couple of things came up. I hadn't talked to her for a couple of weeks, and when I did, she said, "Well, you're a medium, right?" I said, "I never really, I didn't consider myself that." She said, "The experiences you have can only be brought through by a medium. The things that are coming through you, I mean, look at all that evidence of those. You admit you're not an artist, and look at all the art that you put out. A medium does that." And I went, "Okay, I align with that." Then she referred to herself as an evidentiary medium. And I understand exactly what that means. That she, like me, are trying to find all the evidence we can find. And when I can take pictures of it and videos of it, guys, I'm going to do that. I do it for myself first. And if somebody else can be swayed by what I've captured, here is the evidence. So part of my job is being an evidentiary medium as well. So that when I bring you proof and I tell you something, I've got a resource that helped me come to my conclusions, that made me say, that's true. Now, after that, My obligation is do nothing more than to present my evidence. And now it's up to you. I'm not here to convince anybody on the things that have happened to me because I don't know that they're going to happen to you in the same manner, but I can tell you what you should be preparing yourself for are extraordinary experiences and things that you would call miracles. Because in this next little level where you get to manifest that type of thing, it's common ground now.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I just saw the chat and I haven't even noticed it because we've been talking, and people are saying hello. Lakeside Laura, hello from Missouri. So thank you, Laura, for saying hello. And the Laughing Shaman has been sharing her thoughts that she said it reminds her of her journeys in the wilderness and mountains of Alaska, the downloads, the wild and life-changing experiences that she's been through. Let me see who else is talking here. We have Violet Berkline. She says, I've lived here before and then died, and I remember a lot about my 2 lives. Thank you so much for sharing, everybody that's, giving a little share in the chat. Love to hear that you're viewing and getting a lot from what Lowell's sharing tonight. So
that's the purpose for this.
yes.
We were, and that when I said there were things I didn't want to do, one of those things was I didn't want to be a talking head like some of the other people I have run across as I was looking for answers. I didn't want to be, and I couldn't understand why people picked that particular talking head to listen to. I never wanted to be that until I had the experiences I had and
Right.
understood the part of me helping others was to share what happened to me. So I don't hold myself out as different. I am special. I know I have gifts no one else has, but then so does everybody else. That's my point. And when we wrap our heads around that idea and start to work together from that perspective, here is where New Earth is going to blossom into what is already in our heads because we are creating it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm saying hi to Patricia, who's saying hi, Lowell and Janet. Also, oh, I had a thought. It just went out of my head. What was it? Sometimes I guess it's not important enough. But with you and what you've been through, and I know what it was. Being an ambassador to Telos, which is what you are. What you're doing is you're totally aligned with that now, right? You're bringing in the Sharula information. You're bringing in all the digital art that you're forming. Your people are coming out of the woodwork. All your mystical, your Starbucks mystical school. You have amazing members in there because I've listened to them share, and it's just mind blowing.
Yeah, those are some remarkable people that found their way there because they were supposed to, and when they shared, it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
I tend to like to sit back and listen to somebody else rather than influence them with some thought I put in their head, because I want to see how our paths align. Exactly. I want to hear about you before I open my mouth at all, because I want to find the synchronicities between the two of us, because I know they're there.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you the last thing before we go off, because I was in Shasta, and there's a whole another aspect of things that I've seen. And, mine primarily deal with inner earth and that realm. I've certainly been to a friend's property now multiple times, I'm delighted to say, where I've been around a lot of light orbs. This property is ripe for it. It always happens. This time it was going to be a little bit different, though. There was another guy there. His name happens to be Dustin Walker. And Dustin's lived in Mount Shasta for about 20 years, and he has been open to phenomenon that has been extraordinary. He's worked with a couple producers that did some things. They like to go to Pluto's Cave, so he's been on both Discovery and the History Channel taking people there. But Dustin, he's working on another film. He doesn't like attention, but he's working on another film. And so he was going to be there that night at Jamie's. We were going to have a CE5 event, which, if you're familiar with them, it's a gathering of people who go out and watch the sky and look for activity.
Yes.
well, we were going to do that at Jamie's and call it that, but we all go there for the light orbs that we know are going to be photographed around us this night. Well, Dustin went because he was going to photograph the phenomenon around what was going on with us. And he had acquired some new equipment. A few others in the group, and there were about 12 of us that night, had brought some military grade infrared goggles and monocles, so you could actually see out into the sky and see what was moving. Well, I'll tell you what we saw. It's the third time I have seen craft in the sky.
Wow.
The first time was in Sedona when I was invited to the March after all this happened to present. And I was invited a Saturday night among, there were like 36 of us there that day, a bunch of 3 guides who did these, UFO spotting tours. And they said it was going to be like shooting fish in a barrel. Of course, when they said that, I went, yeah, show me. Well, they were right. I saw so much craft moving in the sky, it couldn't be satellites, couldn't be airplanes.
Yes.
So there was a lot. I had finally got to Shasta where I saw a craft over the mountain go, yep, okay, got it, it's here, until that night at Jamie's.
Yeah.
We had, when somebody borrowed me their goggles, I was just looking in the direction of Vega. So if you're familiar with the constellations, that's the direction I was looking in. And after a while, there was a spot that I just held it on, and there were 7 craft moving in different directions that I was looking at. Now, in addition to that, when we all sat around this area and we were just getting started, well, Dustin was moving around behind us and had a new camera he just got from Amazon, took it out and was pointing in the sky. And how he picked that particular point in the sky, what he revealed, Jamie went over first and started to go, you guys got to see this. Well, we all went over and looked over Dustin's shoulder, and what we could see looked like a wormhole.
Oh, wow.
So what we saw was what looked like a circle with these dots moving into it. First it was dim, then it got darker, and then it got dim and went away. Well, in the time it was there, he videotaped this. I've got a couple screenshots of a couple of these. You can definitely tell there are 3 dots in this wormhole that craft were moving in, and then it disappeared. Does this shit happen? Yes, it happens. And Dustin's about to show it on video soon. So if you want some more proof of these things that, the media now thinks they're talking about and the government thinks that they're revealing, they've put it pretty well. That he's got to meet, a lot of people through, his knowledge of physics and what he knows now. He's been around people that work at SpaceX and NASA, and even them, when they want to know what's going on, ask Dave.
Interesting. I know, isn't that interesting? Because it takes these people with their feet in the ground, observing like that with you and groups, to help them validate the truth of what's really going on, guys. It's incredible. I want to say hi to Dee Martin. She said hello and thank you for joining us. And yes, I had an adventure like that. I'm just going to say quick because I know we have to wind this up because you've been talking a while and you probably have, I know it's been amazing and you've shared so many wonderful things. But I was in oh my goodness, I was in New Mexico. I was down in the I'm losing my words. Anyway, I was in this particular reservation area. And everything was flat. And so I asked to see craft. And I looked out my window and there were 3 brilliant lights, like in a triangle formation. And I'm looking out and it was dark at that point. It was pitch black and they were bright and they were just like lingering right outside my window. And I was like, oh my gosh, is that for real? And of course, I didn't take a picture. I was just sort of stunned. And then I went to bed and I said, well, in the morning, if I wake up and I see that there are just light poles there, then I'm going to know that that's not true. But when I woke up, there was nothing there.
There's no light poles. Here's what I want
Blown
encourage
away.
you
Yeah.
and help everyone else that's listening. Dave is proof that if you invite this kind of contact,
Yes. Yes.
you will get it.
It's true.
And don't be freaked out about it. Sooner or later, they're already spending time on the surface. I'm going to just say that. We want to prepare you for the time when you can interface with them without freaking out. They're not all going to look like us. They're going to look a little bit different, but they're benevolent, and you'll feel their energy, and it's loving, and they're here to assist through this process as well. Look, they've been coming here for a lot longer than we have been aware. A lot longer than the 4 years that I think I've been awake and aware. And they've been around here for a lot longer and had influences on us. We, for a variety of reasons, weren't given the choice to focus on that information. So we were ignorant about a lot of things.
Yeah, we've been totally distracted.
That's a polite way to put it.
Purposely distracted. I'm going to just say hi quick to Mystic's Lighthouse. She's saying such a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing it. Hearing your experience pull me out of a funk. Love and light to you both. Thank you. Oh, thank you for sharing that.
Well, tell her to stay tuned, because when I think this is a one and done, no, it's just setting me up for the next thing. And again, I want to emphasize, I am no different than anybody else. My awareness is open. That's all. So I'm here to assist the rest of you to get a hold of whatever it is inside of yourself that you know is true.
Yeah.
Because this illusion is winding down, should we say.
Oh, I love that.
We're getting ready for what's next.
That's well put, Lowell. That's a really good way to put it. And I will say one other share. I sat out in my yard because I love Lily Nova too. And I know you know Lily. I've met this person now, and I went to the Journey of Truth conference and met her, and it was awesome. I met the two boys, two guys, Tyler and Aaron. Great group of people, amazing explorers of all the truth. And so Lily talked about sit out in your yard, like you said, invite the beings in, the craft in. So I sat out in my yard. It was dark. I had to wait till it was pitch dark. I was looking up in the sky, and of course, there are pinpoints in the sky. They're very far away. But I watched, and there was constant traffic. And I sat.
Good for you.
45 minutes, and there was constant movement in the sky, and that's not normal. It's not just stars. It's not comets. It's traffic. And it wasn't a plane, because the planes can go over my house sometimes. So it goes on the way to the airport here.
The planes will blink. They'll always blink.
They do.
See
and there was no blinking.
The red and the green lights.
The craft will too. And I said to them, will you blink at me? And they did. And it was.
Well, here, let me. There's another. We're going to have to do another whole hour. What Dave? You're listening to Dave, because when they're blinking to you, they're sending you light codes. That is what Dave calls continuous light pulse frequencies and transmissions.
Wow.
When you've asked for that communication and they blink back at you, you are receiving downloads. And it's not like we hadn't been getting it for a while. Some of them are assisting us in when our forms are going to change. We're getting cellular reconstruction so that this form, when Earth takes her new form, goes from carbon to crystalline, that is part of the packages we're getting. But this whole other awareness and the unpacking of DNA that has been, let's say, off limits to us for a while, these codes are opening us up to, because man, the light that we're getting is just on a whole another spectrum level. And we didn't have the physical capacity to take it in. So some of that we're getting is allowing us to hold greater light so we can read higher frequencies. Here's where we're going. This is just kind of opening up the package for us to understand all the things that, and I want to make this very important, not new information we're getting, stuff that's been in our Akash forever that is now actually going to be beneficial. And we'll have a command of that again.
Yes. Those Akashic records. We've been talking about those for quite a while, and we're ready to receive all of it and continue when we do this work. We're constantly getting that information. The more you ask and the more you work and move into the higher frequencies, the more we get. And it's just, and it's just asking, isn't it? Like you said, we're meant to
Nothing's being held back right now. If you
Right.
vibrate at the right level, they're trying to hit us over the head with if they're a 2x4 they can think of to get our attention, to help ourselves get to the place where we need to be to prepare ourselves for what's next.
So
Anything that they can do to get their attention. If you're seeing synchronicities, that is not coincidental. They're going to continue to do that. So you just match up these experiences to know that the things that you're asking for are going to be given to you. Keep your
Yeah.
vibrations high and try not to focus on everything else that's going on around you, or you'll just, I see people's vibrations. Once I was made aware of the book Power versus Force, and you kind of had this idea of people's vibrations levels between like 100 and 1,000. So I see this like this meter that goes on all the time. And so, the people that I understand, when I understood what the scale stood for, most people are hovering around, fear is 100 to 200. Fear and envy, that's right there.
Yes, I've
And
seen
so
that.
I see, people that have their awareness of something, their higher aspects in that's like 400. That's a wonderful place. But as soon as somebody else mentions something, it's like I see the meter go, oh, I'm scared. Oh, man, I'm back at 100. And you know what it took me to get all the way up to 4?
Right.
It took a while to get
You can
there.
step out of it again, right, Lowell? I mean, you don't have to stay there.
Well, we're humans and we're still going through this process.
Right.
But it's once you're mindful of what's going on, you can control the narrative. You can control where your attention goes, because we know that where our attention goes, energy flows, thoughts become things. Every monogram for that thought out there, you make your life depending on what you put out. Be mindful that what you put out there is positive if that's what you want back in return. And I have 4 years of proof to tell you that stuff works.
Yes, it's wonderful. I have some words here from Yayama or Yaya, as you call her.
Yedyamaya.
Yedyamaya, which is another member of Lowell's Starbucks Mystery School. And she brought through amazing light language, and then she spoke the words in English, which I thought was absolutely beautiful. But I'm just going to give you, I don't know if I should read it all, but I mean, it's a little bit of a synopsis of what she was sharing. Do you mind if I do that?
No, her words need to be out there for everybody too.
Yes. And it was the most beautiful transmission that she received. And I'm sharing this with all of you because it helps us all to remind us, and to just, maybe you don't know this, but it's whatever it is, it's meant to be heard. Stay in our hearts. Our hearts is where the truth is found. The center of your heart is a sanctuary for you. It will help you find your way on earth. Times of great change are happening. Depending where you are, you will have great pain or great joy. And these are always choices. I'm kind of synopsisizing it. So be in that place of love. I think I made that word up. Love it as it is now. Don't wait for the new earth, which I love. She said, love our earth now. And don't wait for the new earth, but love it now. Be the love in the world. Hold the vision for a higher world. Everyone has their part to play, their job to do. Everyone is unique to themselves. Do it from the present moment, now. And our light is needed now. And breathe in and breathe out as you listen to this. So everyone take a breath, because sometimes we hold our breath and we're always living and we don't realize how much we don't breathe sometimes. So breathe in and breathe out as you're listening, because it's going to relax you. It's going to allow you to come into your heart. Those outside the earth, in the earth, and upon the earth, allow ourselves to be in the space of love. So there are many of us, all dimensions, all areas. At this moment, we are all being touched by the divine. Remember, we are the divine. Be in the silence to be in your own divinity. Even when there is sound all around us, there is silence and stillness within us. As you shared earlier, you mentioned that you have a hard time being in the city, Lowell. Ask for our light to shine and radiate out. Do not give it away. Every day we are changing. Our energy is shifting every day. Something has changed. And I think you can feel it. We have changed. There's been a big shift this year. Something has lifted. And don't you feel lighter right now? I do feel a lightness in the world, in myself. So any of you listening, there is a shift going on. There is a lightness, and she's been given this information. Radiate that out. Be your light. Be the change you wish to see in the world. And that was going to be my final sentence, but cultivate the journey of light. Make sure you create a sacred space, which I'm telling you, this is my word. Before you go into these kinds of areas, always create a sacred space. Remember who you are and ask to be reminded who you are. Thank you for all you do to uplift life, all of you, Lowell, everyone listening. It's a joint effort. We are all in this together. Be the light that you are. Keep coming back into our hearts, to the center. And this keeps us fully present and aware. Thank you all who have joined me and Lowell today. And I'm grateful with all of you to be able to share this. And Lowell, do you have any final words?
Keep your vibration high. That's my mantra for the rest of you, because once you do, these extraordinary things, they're going to find you. They're looking for you. We've been told all we had to do was ask for that kind of divine help. I'm proof to tell you that it comes when we ask for it. And now it's coming in tangible ways that, we thought of prayers answered before. No, some things are physicalizing. And so to me, that's evidence that it was Yemaya that explained this process to me too. When, we were both told, you need to embody your higher aspects more. You need to embody more. Once you bring something into your awareness, bringing it in your physicality after that is the process for manifestation. So this is the way it's done. Once you know what it is that you want and you continue to put your intent and focus on that, guess what? Expect it to manifest here physically. When we get to the next realm, that process in between all that is instantaneous. Here in the third dimension, there's a time delay for a purpose. It gives you the chance to learn all the lessons we were supposed to learn. But when we talk about manifesting and co-creating new earth, those are the tools by which we're going to do it. And like I said, no delay. So let's stop there for today, shall we?
Yes, I am going to say thank you so much, Lowell. It's been such a pleasure. We've gone on quite a long time, almost 90 minutes. So
oh boy,
it's just a blessing.
Sometimes it didn't seem like it, did it?
I'm so glad. No, I've enjoyed all of it, and I hope everyone listening has. And I'm going to thank you so much, and just be the light, everyone. Be the light that you are. So thank you again, Lowell, and see you next time on Secrets of Our Divine Life.